Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to a review of the 60th anniversary specials. What? But they're over. They've finished.
They're
Yes,
over. We talked about the giggle.
but we didn't speak about Blue Yonder, the one in the middle that we missed, the only one that
No.
we watched together.
That's true.
We missed it. We didn't because we didn't feel we had to talk about it. No,
No,
there was lots
nothing else
going
was
on.
going on.
We just had
No
a
stress.
very busy week.
Yeah,
It was fine.
I
It was
just
fine.
moved to an island and
Yeah.
packed, and
We
just
didn't really have a reason not to talk about it.
little things really.
Yeah. But no, we're back to talk about it now because we just couldn't let it go. It was just preying on our minds. We just kept thinking, oh God, Blue Yonder, we really need to talk about that. We've got so much to say.
I simply have to talk about this episode. I had no choice.
Simply have to talk about it. Yeah, we just had too much, and we had just so many opinions that must be shared with the world.
Yes.
None of which are racist. Thank you very much. We've seen those opinions. Those opinions are wrong.
Oh,
They shouldn't be here. We'll come on. We'll come on to that. So
you're
yes,
going to give the most racist negative I've ever heard.
Yes, yeah.
Cancelled.
Well, we could. No, no. Don't be silly.
Yes. Now I get the joke.
There you go.
I'm with you now.
Now you've clocked it. Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go. We've
okay.
done it.
I'm with you.
Oh,
I'm
terrible.
with you.
But yes, this is the second anniversary special, which came out a couple of weeks ago now.
December 2nd, baby.
Oh, there you go. It was pretty much 12 days ago, almost 2 weeks. It features David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and David Tennant and Catherine Tate. And Bernard Cribbins as well. Spoiler alert. Bernard Cribbins appeared at the end. We also had I don't know who the actress was, the star that was the old lady, and we've also got one of the actors from It's a Sin. Oh, there we go.
Susan Twist and Nathaniel Curtis.
Of course. There you go. They played Housemaid and Isaac Newton.
Yes.
That's it. That's all the characters.
People were normal and fine about that.
Yeah. They were perfectly fine. Yeah, there was no there's no issues there. Nothing at all. Nothing to worry about.
I'm fine with the edge of existence itself and weird morphy monsters made of plasticine, but I draw the line at Black Isaac Newton in this fictional TV show, in a fictional world
where I draw the line.
Our own.
Yeah, well, these are the same people. These are the same people that didn't want a woman to play the Doctor. So it's all a fictional world. Just deal with it. Do what you want. But yes, they arrive on a spaceship at the edge of the universe, and they meet creatures that turn themselves into replicas of the Doctor and Donna.
Yes. The not things.
How they got to deal with that? The not things, I think, is sort of the term for them. That's just because David Tennant goes, "We're the not things."
We are not things. Hello, we're the not things.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite what they meant, but if we want to go with
that, this is what the Stretch Armstrong like toys will say. We are the not
yes,
things.
Definitely. I mean, we've got similar in vein. The Midnight Creature is just called the Midnight Creature, so it's fine. If that's what we want to name them, we'll name them. We can't really say the Blue Yonder creatures every time.
Even though they are things, they're also not things. So why not?
Yes,
things.
We'll call them the Yonderoos. There you go.
Yes. Wild Blue Yonderoos.
Yeah, that's what we'll call them. Sorted. Yeah. But yes, our heroes are stranded there. The TARDIS naturally was blowing up. I forgot after Donna spilled her coffee on it, which turns out was just Donna spilling her coffee. Surprise, surprise. It was just framed really poorly, and they crash. I mean, they see Isaac Newton first, then they crash. And if you read the Doctor Who magazine, they do some other stuff first, and then they crash. So who knows what happened, but in that span, apparently they got onto a lot of adventures.
I'm sure we'll find out eventually.
Yeah, probably. And yes, and they must figure out what's going on with this space station while they wait for the TARDIS to return because it's detected danger. So it's like, I'm out, bitches. So yeah, fair enough. But yeah, overall, before we get into our positive and negatives, what did you think of this episode? Now that we've had, this is kind of cheating a bit because we have had the full specials now, so our views may have changed slightly to when we first.
This is an interesting way to approach this one. It's something we've never done before. in terms of reviewing Blue Yonder. It's completely different to anything we've ever done before in Shouting Into the Void. Here are our negatives and positives, and
we've still got the basic plot structure. We're just doing it slightly differently.
Yes. Oh man, this episode. Like a not thing. I still don't know what form I take with it. I mean, I do because I have made a decision. But you know, when I first watched it with you, I was like, yeah, fine. I watched it again on my own before the giggle. I was like, yeah, it's okay. Watched it again with Dad. I was like, oh, this is so boring. So I really, I don't know. I do think it has diminishing returns, but I don't think that should be held against an episode because you know, a lot of TV I don't think really is made to like you must rewatch all these episodes 25,000 times.
And you know, like imagine I've watched a lot of Game of Thrones and I've rewatched a lot of the first like 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, but I've not really watched a lot of the end. So it kind of it's there for the time, and then it's kind of you go back if you like it, you go back to it, and you know this is probably one of those episodes that you probably catch in a rewatch rather than specifically going to see it. Maybe
our YouTube will see it at the end and probably then not cut back in. You know, I've watched it 3 times. I'm more than happy to never watch this again, which I guess gives a general impression of how I feel. You know, it's definitely a victim of overhype, both before and after the episode aired, in my opinion. But you know, that's not really to do with the episode itself. I guess it's just how the episode was presented. But you know, there's stuff to enjoy in there. I did have some fun with it. I don't think it's all that really. I do think it's the weakest special, which is definitely the unpopular opinion because everyone's saying the opposite to me, which tends to be
everyone
the case.
says the Starbeast is the worst in their opinion.
Incorrect. The Starbeast has the lead.
Yeah,
you're wrong.
That's true.
But you know, it's fine. I think it's a shame that it's treated as a 60th anniversary special. If this was just a standard episode in a standard series, I think I would feel better about it. But you know, being presented as a special for the 60th and stuff like that, and it's always hard to be the middle episode of 3 as well. But I mean, for most people, it broke that curse. So you know, it is just me. But it was fine. It was a Doctor Who episode with you know. An interesting marketing that I do think negatively affected that, and they have said that probably was an oopsie, which I do like that they've admitted that.
They're definitely not going to do it again, though.
Definitely not. This is the greatest threat the Doctor's ever faced, and the Duchess will be the greatest threat the Doctor's ever faced in Series 14. So stay tuned for that.
I forgot they were in that. I forgot. Edina Burnham.
Yeah,
Burma?
The one who waits. I'm calling it now.
Okay, could you imagine? Susie, she's been dead this whole time, waiting for the Doctor to return.
My God. So yeah, I thought it was a fine episode of Doctor Who. I think it's a shame it was a 60th special. I personally would have, I think, preferred this with maybe Shooty in Series 14 as an episode rather than you know, taking a spot in the 60th anniversary celebrations. But for what it is, it's fine. But for me, I think it does have some diminishing returns.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think my scores definitely, because I wrote my notes sort of the week after it aired, but after watching it again, it's kind of dropped a little bit, especially after seeing the 3rd special. And I think if you put this, you know, if you put this in Series 4, you know, it's one that people will love and go back to and keep watching. But I think you're right. As a 60th special, there's nothing necessarily 60th about it. There's a couple of nice references, you know, obviously to the Fire of London, to the Hads, to you know, all those kinds of things, to the Timeless Child and the Time War and all that kind of thing. But that's roughly about it. And you could get that. That's not necessarily just a 60th thing. You could have that in a normal episode anyway. But that's not to say I didn't like it. I still did enjoy it.
No, I don't think it's bad by any stretch.
No, and it certainly tries some stuff, and I'm glad that it tries what it does, because I think most of it's effective with what it is. But yes, we'll move on to our positives first then, and we'll do 3 each. I believe it's your turn to go first this time.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah.
I've kind of just put the general concept.
Yeah, concept is my first one.
Yeah, what a concept. This feels like Russell at his most Moffat, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You know, it felt very like World Enough and Tiny, with like the spaceship being like the crux of the story, and like what's going on with that has an effect on the plot and everything, with it like moving about, and you know, the not things and everything with that. So I really liked that mystery. And actually, I think that's probably the one thing I have really enjoyed rewatching it, is seeing like they've set up the mystery and paid it off really well. I thought it was a very satisfying, like, here's what's going on, which I did enjoy. I guess that is the benefit of having an hour-long episode as well. You really let it kind of, you can go wacky and crazy with it and be like, what the hell's going on? But you also have time to explain everything. So I thought the idea of, you know, these creatures and the captain that, you know, takes her own life to stop them because, you know, they don't understand things if they're going slowly. And it's just, you know, a very, very slow ticking time bomb, which is an interesting just kind of contrast as an idea anyway. All of that I thought was really, really great. And yeah, just a classic Doctor Who-y idea, I suppose. You know, it's the classic on a spaceship, what the hell's going on in the spaceship? And I do think, you know, something Doctor Who can only really do with the twists and turns of what's going on and the countdown and moving slowly and all of that. I do think, you know, the very, very plot element of it actually is very strong and very well written and kind of put together and pays off in an excellent way. So yeah, just the idea behind it. And I wouldn't go as far as to say, oh, nothing's ever been done before. You know, evil clones, the Sontarans would like a word. And yeah, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, I do really like the idea of the episode itself and what they do with it, how they explain it. The reveal of it is done very well. It is all very clever, and I think makes a lot of sense. Which is astounding, because halfway through I was like, what on earth is going on here? But you know, only 20 minutes later I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're going with that. So you know, it sets things up really nicely, and it does pay them all off really nicely as well. So very much enjoyed just I guess the meat and potatoes of the episode, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. The concept of a abandoned spaceship is obviously one that's been done, you know, before in Doctor Who, and is a very sci-fi trope in the first place. But it's about how it's done and the threat they face. I think the concept of the not things is also very good. The fact that they're these beings that have sort of lived outside the universe and were attracted to the light of the universe by the hate and anger that is sort of that fuels it. And you know, that's something that you could argue is played on in the next episode as well, in the giggle with the whole hate and anger and all that kind of thing there.
So it makes us like, oh, that idea is quite good, I'm going to use that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it kind of does inspire him.
And the line, I think it's like, you know, love letters don't travel that far. I was like, oh, that's a good line. And yeah, just that whole idea, the whole idea that they don't know who to trust and they're not always entirely sure they're getting the right people, especially when they're pretty much 99.99% the other person.
Yeah, this is a better Secret Invasion than Secret Invasion, from what I've heard.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's done very well. And you know, there are some issues with it naturally, but I think a lot of it works, and it plays into both characters very well, and it gives them both a chance to shine. So overall, you know, a great episode, and we touched on earlier. If it's not part of the 60th, I think I say hold it in higher regards. I think a lot of people do like this one anyway, and might most see it maybe as the better of the three.
This is easily the most popular of the three, for sure.
Yes, and I think this is easily the one that upsets people. I say upsets people the less, other than the Isaac Newton racism. This is the one that is sort of less, I guess, harmful to the history. It's harmful.
Yeah, this is the most history for them saying that this is something Doctor Who's never done before. I think this is the most just normal standard Doctor Who of the three.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people liked that, in that they were like, oh yeah, this was a good way to showcase the 60th, because this was like a classic Doctor Who episode, and it's just how Doctor Who can be. And I was like, yeah,
okay, sure. Like every Doctor episode for 6 years.
Yeah. I did really enjoy the whole concept of it, and you know, the situational aspects of it all, and the story was good, was very good, and I hope we get similar ones to this in the future as well.
What we really needed was the Not Things to have a song.
Yeah, could you imagine? I would take that. We've seen David Tennant sing before. We've seen Black
things.
You see, you can get him doing.
I am you, and I am you.
Oh, it'll come.
I can stretch my limbs out too. La, 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 la.
I'm gonna have it. That'll be there now. Next Christmas special. It's coming.
That better be in the novelisation.
Sure, I've not read the novelisation. You never know. They might have a little boogie. There is music in this episode. The TARDIS does come in blasting a tune. So,
well, Blue Yonder, no less.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, your second positive.
My second positive is the reveal of the not things, and I mean like the first time, like, oh, that's not the Doctor. Oh shit.
Yeah.
And then when it first cuts back to the Doctor and they've had that conversation, I mean, I thought something was obviously up with him anyway, but then just cuts back to the Doctor and like, oh shit, oh no,
oh boy,
and Donna walks in, like, oh, that's such a good moment. Like, it's just like, oh shit, that's when I think the episode really starts to get going. Because it is kind of all just exploration and setup prior to that, but that moment it's just like, oh, so this is what they're doing with it. This is why it's different. Okay. I just thought that was a great kind of, oh shit, this is what, they're in danger now. I'm in danger. That kind of just moment. So, I think that's, I guess, one thing with like not really knowing what was going to happen in this one.
Yes.
A lot of the time, what the villains are going to be when you go into an episode, or you've seen filming pictures and stuff like that. So you don't have the, oh shit, it's the Daleks moment because it's called Evolution of the Daleks or something like that.
Yeah.
Rise
of the Cybermen. Oh my god, the Cybermen at the end of this.
Oh my god. No, impossible. So I guess most of the time you do miss out on that sort of moment because you really don't know what you're dealing with. But with this one, you could generally just have David Tennant and Catherine Tate walking around on set, and you have no idea that they're actually, they're filming scenes as the villains. So when you do get that moment, that was something quite fun. And just the shit hitting the fan moment that I do think had a lot of impact. And I think maybe not just rewatching it on my own because I now know what's coming, but I did enjoy that moment again even more rewatching it with my dad. Not that I don't think he understood, because my father doesn't understand anything, but I did like that. Oh boy, I was like looking at him to see what his face was like. He was just like, as it was. But
slowly processing. He's still processing what the Hads is, and he's like,
I genuinely was expecting to be like, but isn't he in there? Like, what's going on? He wouldn't realize like, oh, there's two different Doctors going on. Listen, but I still think it's a really great moment. Just that, oh shit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That kind of leads into my sort of second positive as well, which is just in general, David Tennant and Catherine Tate. You have to have a big faith in your lead actors to carry this episode because it's literally just them. And we've known for a long time that their chemistry is great and they can obviously hold these kinds of things, but to give them the faith to do that and to do it with, such in the 60th anniversary sort of episodes where, there will be a lot of people watching it. It's going out, to a worldwide audience rather than, it would have been in 2008. It's a lot of pressure, and they do it very well, both as the normal Doctor and Donna and the duplicates. The one that sort of sticks out is when the Doctor's like talking about the flux and all the destruction and all that kind of thing that is caused, and just David Tennant's emotion in that scene and afterwards is like, that's very good acting. And you can see that, and you can believe that it's happened to him, and it's not the 10th. This is where I think people probably went, that's the 14th Doctor. It's not the 10th Doctor, because he has that reaction to everything that's happened since, and you believe it's happened to him. So I think that helps. And then obviously Catherine Tate playing evil Catherine Tate, I think she's just having a lot of fun with it, and you can tell that she's enjoying herself.
She's channeling her like sketch comedy show kind of thing.
Yes,
because she can just go crazy with it if she wants to.
Yeah, and it's great. And I think they obviously they carry a lot of the episode. They're so good. And just all throughout, you can tell that their chemistry is great, and you can tell that they really believe in what they're doing and the script and all that kind of thing. And without those two actors, I think it's a struggle to make this happen, because of how sort of experienced they are and how sort of well they work together. Like if you put this at the start of series 5 with Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, you probably don't get the same effect.
No.
and you probably will get a similar one if you did it with Capaldi and Clara, but at the same time, I don't think there's that element of the characters know each other as much at that point. So I think this is probably the only story you could do it with these characters, because they have, such a history, and the actors bring that through very well. And they deserve a big credit with their big acting, and it's great acting. I really enjoyed it. Thank God. Yeah, it's not just big hands; it's big acting. But yeah, what's your final positive?
My final one is, well, you just kind of mentioned it, exploring the consequences of the flux and that impact it has on 14. It's just fun seeing Catherine Tate say the flux.
Just fun seeing him in pain.
it's just fun seeing the Doctor in pain. It's every week. But yeah, like it just seems so bizarre to be like, oh my God, David Tennant's mentioning the flux and Catherine Tate saying the flux. She has no fucking clue what she's saying. It's hilarious to know. But yeah, I think with how David performs that scene, stuff like, he's kept up with the show.
Exactly.
He does research and he's put his whole David Tennessee into that.
He's watched his best friend play the role for however long, because he obviously worked with Jodie Whittaker before, so he's almost definitely, and he's a fan of the show in general. So he almost definitely, if he wasn't catching up live, he would have rewatched, I think, following this.
So yeah, I just think that was really nice to kind of just see a very good character moment. Not only for 14 to kind of differentiate him from 10 a bit more, but also you just kind of see like, 13 was holding all that in. Oh fuck! So retroactively, you can see because 13, she just suffered in silence all the time, and 14 is a lot more kind of expressive and open with his emotions, which I think he has learned from being her. So to kind of see that followed on and kind of explored a bit, and it's a statement as well to kind of be like, yes, that did still happen. We're not undoing that. You fans who want Jodie to be erased from history, that still happened. And I thought that was a nice little win for that era as well. A nice little nod to it, and that whole sequence I just thought was really nicely done, very well written, and obviously David killed that scene as well. And he just starts kicking that spaceship apart, as it deserves, because it's being pretty rude to him this whole episode.
It really is.
I think he's allowed that moment. But yeah, it was a great kind of a little breather of a character moment, and his little face when he realizes it's not Donna, and he's like, oh, I've just poured my heart out to this not thing. It's really well done, that scene. I think it's probably my favorite scene of the episode, I would say, as much as I love like the very last scene for obvious reasons. I think this is probably the best scene.
Yep, I saw you looking at me then, but your audio was still a bit laggy, so I was like, I can hear you talking to me, and I can't see your mouth moving.
Oh dear, my arms are too long.
It's fine, literally. Your mouth is too closed. What's going on? But I agree. And the fact that Russell was like, oh, the flux gets a little mention in this episode. I was like, Russell, that's not a little mention. That's a whole big character moment. What are you going on about, man?
That's a scene, Russell.
But yeah, I do appreciate that. I mean, the fans are like, oh, I've got more out of the flux in this episode than I did in the whole thing. I was like, oh, shut up.
That scene can only happen because of it, you dumb fucks.
Yeah, go away. But yeah, I agree. It is a good scene, and it is probably one of the best scenes. And it gives David Tennant a chance to shine, I think, which he gets loads of moments throughout the specials, but I think this is probably the standout. Probably across the three, I would say.
I can see what I put in the trailers.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. My final positive is the practical effects. Yay! The really long arms. Whoa. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. When it happened, we both sort of looked at each other and went, what the fuck is going on?
I was like, what the fuck is happening?
What is this?
I just got the giggles, ironically. I can't believe I'm watching this. Like,
because it was like you watch it and you're like, this isn't what's happened, but there's still an element of that's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, you're like, they're not doing this, surely.
Yeah, and then when they walk out with like the arms just dragging behind them, I'm like, oh, I really don't like that. But the fact that it's all practical as well, and it's David Tennant, and since this episode come out, they've done loads of behind the scenes where they just sat there with the big arms, and it's hilarious. Yeah. I think that's great. But just I'm really happy that we're getting so much practical stuff in this, and it's not all just, now we've got money, we don't need to do practical, we can just do everything CG, which, spoiler alert, thank God they didn't for this one, else there could be more issues. But the fact that they poured money into the practical effects, not just in this episode, but in the Star Beast and in the Giggle, they've used some really good practical props, which is really good. And I really like the use of it. I really like the use of the really long hands. I think they really sell the effect. I think Donna being turned into a puddle, she actually is the puddle on the floor. And I think it's just Catherine Tate poking out of it. And I think that's great. So I'm really pleased that they did all of this practically, and they didn't just sort of, because it's so easy to do a cheap thing. And like they did with when the mouth sort of dropped, you can definitely tell that's a CGI. But with the big arms, it's like, I just don't like it, and it's like unnerving when it's a practical effect. You feel it more than if it's a CGI.
You feel the weight of him actually dragging them along the floor, because he is dragging them along the floor.
Yeah, and it really sells it. It sells the performance and sells the realism of the whole thing. And I think it just deserves a shout out because, in the age of everything must be CGI, and especially with Disney's money coming in to stream it, there could be more of an effort to do that, but it looks like they're not doing that. If we look at already things we've seen of the new series coming out for Shooty, you can tell that they're already putting more effort into practical stuff as well, and just using CGI to enhance it rather than using CGI as the crutch, which we've seen happen on other shows. So please keep this going, please. It worked very well in this one, and it worked very well elsewhere. Have you got any other positives for this episode?
I really enjoyed, particularly, for my first watch through, the scenes when they're trying to work out who's who, I genuinely had no idea. And I think that can be quite difficult to get right. But I genuinely was like, this could go either way. I know, they're not going to pair up the two real ones and the two no things, because the no things know each other. So like one of them in each one's obviously going to be the thing, but I generally couldn't tell.
And it flips it round as well, I think, because for David Tennant and Catherine scene, as soon as they came through those doors, I assumed the other one was the thing, because you see it from Catherine's point of view. She goes through the door and David Tennant comes out. I'm like, oh, that's the fake David Tennant. Catherine Tate's point
that was a good bit of direction.
It muddles it out, which is great.
Yeah, that was good. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. And also, we can't not mention the Wilf scene and his appearance at the end. It's just very sweet and wholesome and bittersweet. It was just great to see him. And, his Wilf's little face when he recognises the Doctor, and he's like, oh. Yeah. I'm like, oh. That was great. We knew we were going to see him. I anticipated him being in the last one, so it was a genuine surprise when he popped up there. Like, oh, my God. So, it was just great to see Wilf again, however, sadly briefly it had to be. And I'm just glad he was there. Yeah. That was a nice little kind of moment to see those reunite as well.
Yeah, and the behind the scenes for that as well is super emotional and super wholesome. And his interview in Doctor Who magazine as well, which came out the week after, I think, which is just great. My additional sort of positives, that just the whole creepy and the horror element of it, just this kind of brutalist aspect of these not things and how far they'd go, when the not Doctor's trying to run at the robot and he just gives up and runs on all fours. I'm like, I'm not a fan of that. When they're stood behind the glass and they're doing the evil look and the evil voice, I'm like, I just don't like it. And even that, even sort of the unsettling nature of it all to start with, before you even, first time watching it, you're so tense because you're like, something's going wrong here. We know there's danger, but we don't know what it is. And it just unnerves you how it's all set and how that plays into the direction as well, which funnily enough I think this is the one directed by the guy that directs Ghosts. So it's quite the tonal shift from Ghosts to this.
Incredible.
But he's done great. It's great. I also, this might be a hot take, but I did like the Mavity joke, which is something that I didn't clock on our first watch through. I didn't clock that Gravity and Mavity had swapped. But then watching it through, I was like, wait a minute. Like, Donna's just saying Mavity, and the Doctor's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, it's a good bit. Whether it's a necessary bit, which we'll come on to, is whatever.
Yeah, it won't stick, but I think for this one episode, it was quite fun.
Yeah, and I quite enjoyed it.
Someone will forget at some point.
Yeah. They'll forget next episode. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't matter.
You can't have new people come in and be like, "Why are they saying Mavity? What is that?"
yeah, exactly. But I think it's such a, when the Doctor calls it gravity and Don's like, what? And he's like, oh, Mavity. Like, oh yeah, I've got to remember to play along with this.
Yeah.
I think it's very funny. And in an episode where there's
in that the opening bit when he's like Mavity, I was like, he's misheard them. That's funny. And I generally thought that was the end of the joke. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then when I rewatched it, I was like, oh, that carries on. Okay. My dad did enjoy the Mavity bit actually. He laughed every time they said.
Oh, there we go. Oh, so, good. That's nice. He called it.
At least
he called it.
Two people enjoyed
more
it.
attention to us. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate that, and I think in an episode where a lot of it's creepy and a lot of it's like quite tense, to have sort of a little bit of lightheartedness is nice, and it weaves its way in quite nicely, I think, and it doesn't overshadow like some comedy does in some episodes, shall we say. That's roughly about it from me, I think, on my positives. So we must now approach the negatives.
We must.
Your first one.
I think it's just a slow starter, a slow burner.
Yeah.
But I think once you know kind of where things are going, and just like like the diminishing returns kind of thing I talked about. So yeah,
it's
I think
kind of like in Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man, when you're just waiting. Yeah, you're just waiting for
the bridge.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm waiting for okay, I need to get through these first 32 minutes before Doc Ock shows up on the bridge. It is essentially that, and that is most half the episode. But for me, when you've watched it for the first time, it's fine. Mainly, I did check my watch a few times, but it was just particularly with the bit where oh, we need to find this room, and then they walk around the corner, it's just there. And he's like, oh, I need to find this room. And he's like, oh, it's just there. I was like, oh, that's gonna be a thing. They're finding exactly what they need. No, it just they find exactly what they need.
It's just a very basic ship where everything is at the front.
Yeah, a basic massive ship where everything is just there.
Yeah.
So there's a few things like that might, or maybe you could just made something interesting happen there instead of that. So yeah, I do think there are better examples, I guess, of just exploring something. I mean, it's just a white spaceship, really, isn't it? There wasn't too much to see, I guess. Which is, I guess, why it was a bit baffling to me that things weren't escalating. Or maybe they have a few shots of okay, something's watching them through the vents or whatever. Maybe escalate that rather than just doing that same thing for a bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just a slow burner. And when it's an hour-long episode, I think it really, really sticks.
Yeah, I think it's fair, because I think the ship doesn't need to be that big. There's not necessarily a reason why it needs to be as long as it is, with just a really long corridor. So I think you can do other things to keep it interesting, but at the same time, you kind of know what's coming, especially on on a second and third watch. You know what's coming, so you're kind of like, well, I don't need to pay attention to this anymore. But when you first watch it, I do, it's fair to say that you are hooked, and you're kind of on the edge of going, oh, what's going on? But that's more a case of I don't know anything that's going to happen, rather than sort of the episode necessarily teasing you in. Yeah. By my first negative, which may crop up in yours, it's the CGI.
That is my second one.
The Doctor's jaw one, I'm fine. That's fine.
The Doctor's jaw one. I love that episode.
Yeah, that one's fine. I'll give that a pass. But it's the rest of the ship. It's just a really long corridor. I'm like, you don't need this. You don't need to do this. Just make either just a long corridor, or don't make a long corridor. Just make a small room. You don't need to, especially when they got so many good practical effects in this. You don't need a super long CGI treadmill. But they do. I mean, because it's not even that all the CGI in this is bad. You have the outside shots of the spaceship and the drone flying around. I was like, that's really good.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was just about. It's mainly the really long corridor, and it just looks.
Yeah, there are a few. I don't think they're really there moments.
Yeah, it's not great, and that especially because like the other rooms are real and you can tell they're real. The pilot room's real when they're speaking to each other. It's all real. It's just that one corridor that's just long and bland, and there's nothing interesting on either side. And it's just very basic and very, even when it all shifts around, which probably doesn't necessarily need to do that either. I get that's probably why it's a CGI thing, so it can do that. But you don't need that to happen other than to separate them both. At that convenient time to separate. You can do that another way without having the wall shift for a reason. But the CGI is just not necessary. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Make it good. Or make it good.
Make it good. Make it look good would also help. I do think the worst offender for me is, when the not doctor puts his head underneath his legs and he's like,
yeah.
That's the word. I'm like, that looks awful.
See, that's also the same thing with for the giggle, when they got David's head on the puppet. I'm like, the heads are too big. They're too big. They're too big for this. And that's what makes them look weird and obviously CGI, because they're just too big.
Yeah.
But
feels like one of those things of like, we've nailed this. Let's put it in every single special. And it's like,
don't do it.
Like if you could do like the Donna puddle thing practically, I just think they do the whole like, I'm putting my head underneath my legs and taunting Donna because I'm creepy and scary. And like, they think it looks scary and creepy, but if they generally found a way to just make it look like, just build a actual like rubber body or something, and David can just put his head there or whatever. Like if it actually like looked good, then it would be scary and weird and effective. But sadly not. Like when it like crawls and stuff, that is creepy. So I think that looks alright, but you just didn't need that bit of the head.
Yeah, and the bit where it crawls and stuff was practical. That was a guy doing that.
What a surprise.
So that tells you a lot. But again, it comes back to when they get super, super big and they chase them down the corridor, that works. I would argue that it's supposed to look very sort of gross and deformed and a bit off, because that's the whole point of that.
For me, I just find that funny and silly. I think it's trying to be like weird and scary, but it's for me personally, it's not. I do think it looks fine, so it could be worse.
Yeah. And I think if you're a kid watching it, though, that all of this is horrifying. If you're a 10-year-old boy sat at your home watching this on a dark Saturday night, you're horrified, I think, throughout all of this.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what 10-year-old kids are doing these days. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're desensitized and they don't care. I don't know.
Sassing year 8 and 9,
isn't it? Yeah.
Somehow getting ahead of their station.
God, yeah. But CGI is just a bit naff. So that was your second one, was it?
Yes.
Right. My second one, which again might be into yours. This is the second Donna death fake out in a row.
That is one of my bonus ones.
There you go.
There's no need. It's immediately fixed. There's no need.
Yeah, I mean, what I see, I think this is the main issue that a lot of people had with the episode, and I think you see it a lot, and people still try and change it now. But I just don't think you need to. First of all, Donna gives a really stupid answer. Of course, he's not going to pick that one. What are you doing? Just say, I was half expecting you to be like, oh, Mr. Bean, and then be like, oh, there we go. But she's like, oh, it's a name of a vegetable. Give it to a woman. I'm like, no one's thinking that at all. So she kind of deserved it from her point to be.
She deserved to be.
She deserved it. And then also, there's an element of just maybe you should have just pretended and just been like, maybe it isn't. Maybe it wasn't the right Donna. Maybe it is the right Donna, and just leave it ambiguous, and then have that. That's a little plot point that you could just maybe pull up later, but. Because the fake Donna was already pretty much a Donna there at any point, so she could be reacting like that anyway.
Yeah.
But I think and you could tweak the script slightly so it's a bit different. But I think to have this episode maybe a bit more lasting, you could have it just be like, oh, is that the real Donna? And I mean, you don't necessarily have to pay that off immediately, like in the next episode. But if you wanted to revisit that, in 5 years' time when there's a different doctor, and then all of a sudden there's some issue on Earth, and it turns out that you saved the wrong one. That's a consequence of actions that you could have had.
It feels like people complain about other areas and like, oh, something earth-shattering that should change the relationship between these two has just happened because he's picked the wrong one, his supposed best friend. And then they just, that's never mentioned again or brought up, or they didn't talk about or anything. And other writers and eras wouldn't get away with that. And talk about that with this one, funnily enough.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the Doctor's still not acknowledging Graham's cancer concerns. It's still held over that for a long time now. And I mean, you just don't need it. You can avoid all of that by just not having it in, just having Donna be the right one, and just having the end there.
And even 14 avoids the awkward conversation at the end, like 13 does, but it's fine now apparently.
Yeah. Because Donna made a joke about it, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's funny.
But I don't think you need that. And thankfully, I mean, if we were recording this after the episode, we were going to be like, better not be a fucking third Donna. And there wasn't. It's okay. She just wasn't illegal. So
she just didn't do anything, so it's fine.
She didn't do anything, so there was no need.
I prefer that to a third death fake. I mean, she's had a third death fake out, I guess, in Journey's End, but a fourth one we wouldn't want.
She's had
and the end of time. So
she's had like 5 death fake outs. There's enough. She's been tortured enough.
I'm glad they refrained, and out of the last 6 stories she's been, I'm glad they gave her one where she doesn't have a fake death.
Finally,
that's nice.
Yeah. But I just think you can just avoid that, and you can just have Donna not like. I just don't know. There's just so many sort of things wrong. It feels very much like they wanted a moment where they're like, "Oh my god, I picked the wrong one," and then just didn't think about having the consequences around it.
Yeah, it needs to happen maybe a bit earlier. And it's just like, boop, and then the stairs go up and it just slides up. Oh, okay, cool, great.
I mean, I like the way the stairs just sort of launched.
That was very funny. I did like yeet. I think it makes sense that the TARDIS would have a feature like that to get someone out of there. So that's fun. And I do think Catherine Tate is amazing in that bit where she's like, "I'm gonna die." She's just staring at the cabin. She's amazing in that bit. I don't know if it's worth it, but her whole Catherine Tatosy.
Tatosy,
Tatosy.
But so what's your third negative?
The pre-title sequence. Not for any racist reasons.
Not for racism, no.
Not for racism
just
at all.
Need for it. Yeah, it's my one as well. It does need to be there.
It's not the worst thing because at least it has the title sequence breaking up, so it's not like tonal whiplash. Thank God.
Although, according to a certain other YouTube channel, it is tonal whiplash. So
no. Well, incorrect. It's fine.
It's your opinion is wrong.
But it doesn't mean the sequence is good or necessary. I don't know. It felt like it did feel like it was written for a completely different episode almost, and like a very weird like sandwichy thing. So it's like the stakes feel suddenly gone from the ending, and then when it comes back and lands, the TARDIS is throwing up fire. But it just feels like, I want the Doctor to be the one to meet Isaac Newton and and have a role to play in that whole thing or whatever. I don't know if I want a whole episode about it. I don't know where it would fit. It can go there. I got my friend from It's a Sin. I want him to have a scene in Doctor Who. So there you go. It was a bit needless and inconsequential. Certainly better than Donna's going to die.
It certainly was.
They did get better as the specials went on. Thank God. But it did feel a bit like, I don't know. That's a bit strange. So it kind of got me on a funny feeling, I guess, right from the off of that episode. Because like, so it's fine. And the bit was like, come on, let's say the joke. We're gonna say the joke now. We're gonna say the joke now.
I will defend that bit because I found that hilarious at the time. I find it hilarious when I've rewatched it, especially because you know what's coming, and it's like, yes, this is an excellent punchline.
It is.
Punchline's
the
great. Whole point of the scene. Yeah,
but it's too much back and forth. Like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Come on, the crowd. Like, you're David Tennant, Catherine Tate in that scene. You're not the Doctor and Donna. Like, come on. So it just felt a bit off to me, that whole thing. But
I think that's
at least they carry on the narrative thing, but also you don't need the narrative thing. So it's it's a minute for the sake of being a minute of an episode. They wanted a pre-title sequence. There you go.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I just don't think there's necessarily a need for it. It's kind of like they wanted just something to put before the credits. Like they felt like they had to have something, and then the episode gets going. And like I said, in Doctor Who magazine, the one that came out last week, their comic strip there is set between these 2 episodes as well. So like they kind of just bump into other things as they're going. So I wonder whether which one came first, whether they were like, I'm doing Isaac
Yeah.
Newton, you can play around with that gap if you want here before we get a, because I imagine there'll be a 15th Doctor comic in the next Doctor Who magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably just needed something for here.
Yeah, I think it would have worked better as a sequence if we did see multiple things rather than just the one.
Yes, just
so it does feel like they just went there, we calibrated, and then it's fine.
And then left. Yeah, I think that is fair. But yeah, there's just no need for it. You don't necessarily. I like the Mavity joke, but you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need that in the episode. I do like the gravity of the situation joke. I still think that's great.
It's a good joke. It's just the build up to it was like 3 seconds too long.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
It was like, okay, you've improvised, but calm down now.
Yeah. No, I do agree. But yeah, I think there's just not necessarily any just no need for it. It feels like Russell's like, I can't think of a good story for Isaac Newton and him getting the apple. So rather than wait and come up with something later, I'm just going to use it now.
Yeah.
And then nobody can touch it again. Even though the fourth Doctor
God, they'll try.
Apparently. Well, yeah.
It's fine because this is Doctor Who 2023 Dash.
Yes, it certainly is Dash.
This is season 1 prelude.
Yes. But yeah, it just doesn't seem to be there. Have you got any other additional negatives?
Let's have a look. I had the Donna death fake out, and
yeah,
I don't see why Wild Blue Yonder needed to be a thing.
Mysterious.
Yeah, like the TARDIS was playing it cool. Why has it not played it in other situations? I know it's like, it can mean one thing and the other thing kind of deal.
Yeah.
That sets it up. But they have a conversation with different examples later in the episode anyway. And then when it comes back playing the music, I'm like, but it's gone. Why are you now playing that? Isn't that supposed to be a warning? What's going on here? It feels like that's in there because he wanted the episode to be called Wild Blue Yonder, but it had no relevance whatsoever to the actual plot.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Yeah, my sort of additional ones was it just took a while to get going. And that, it's just take too. I mean, that's a rewatch issue. I think is that it just takes too long.
Yeah, but even when we watched it for the first time, I was like, something happened, please.
Yeah, it's especially what, and this is sort of another negative as well. It's just what it was so overhyped, and like, you don't know anything about this, and I think they kind of realized too late. Shit, people are thinking every Doctor under the sun's going to be back because the director went on Twitter and was like, no, guys, no. Don't worry about that.
It's just an episode of Doctor Who that they
decided. So I think that kind of, because I think I remember being like, what if it's this? What if it's this for like the first 10 minutes, and it's like, it's none of this. I think that again, if this was another era, it gets criticized a lot more for doing that.
If it was a different era, if it was a different Doctor and companion duo, if like this is boring and rubbish.
Yeah, 100%. But
it's the sad truth, but it is the truth. I'm sorry about it.
And that's
it doesn't make the episode bad.
Yeah, we wouldn't say that. People would say that. People would say, that it would be the worst thing ever if it was certain other groups.
Yeah.
Like 4 and Sarah. Just would be terrible with those. Don't want them to do it. God.
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm about.
Famously not popular pairing, 4 and Sarah.
Yeah. Who needs them? 5 and Adric. There you go. There's a good pairing for you.
That'd be great.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine this episode, but then
get Adric again?
Imagine 2 Adrics.
Adrics.
Just doesn't save any of it. Just leaves them there.
That would help the toy maker though, because Adric always thinks he's right. So he doesn't even need to be influenced. He would cause it. The toy maker would love Adric so much.
Oh God, bring him back, guys. Bring it back. He's keen for it. He's on Twitter going, thanks guys, thanks for the love. Just bring it back. Yeah. It's fine.
He's getting mentioned all the time. It's inevitable now.
He really is.
He's got Magic the Gathering card. He's on his way back.
He's coming. He's coming.
His death will be undone.
We'll have it that Shooty actually saved
He is the one who waits, because he's been waiting since 1982 or something.
I don't.
Finally, we meet again.
But I think, in fact, it's a whole other tangent. If Adric comes back, I think they could do him a lot better now.
Sure.
Like Mel, so many characters that have returned that have been
just
better now.
Like with Mel, write her as if she's someone completely different, and then you like her.
Yes, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. She's no longer annoying. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think also before we go on to sort of some fun facts, I did like when the Doctor like licks the thing and does the death fake out. Great,
it's
good,
so mean, but
comment.
very funny.
it's so funny. It's
just a horrible thing to do to your best friend, but he's also like, you idiot.
It's so 12 coded as well. I think it's great. It's something that the 12th Doctor would have done to Clara on multiple occasions. Yeah, and I just find that so funny. It's great. It's also something that Graham probably would have done. So maybe he's just picking up on that.
He would have killed a human if Graham had just done it. He just dies.
Could you imagine?
Grace.
But yes, fun facts for the episode. What have you got?
Fun facts. Let's have a look. We do have some. Scroll up. Okie dokie. This episode is named after the US Air Force song referred to as Wild Blue Yonder, which the TARDIS plays and is referenced in the story. Solid work on the Doctor Who wiki yet again. The episode was dedicated to the memory of Bernard Cribbins, who passed away over a year before the episode aired. Oh, it was that quote about like, I can't wait to watch myself in the special.
I know. I was like,
please no. I hope somewhere he did watch and enjoy.
Yeah.
And go, what the fuck is going on with their arms?
yeah, it's horrifying. Yeah, that's what we did. He saw a first cut of the episode and went, oh, no, sorry.
I'm out. This is how the story ends. The marketing for the episode was kept incredibly vague and revealed very little about the plot. Russell T Davies wanted one of the specials to be a complete mystery, and the BBC wished to maintain the surprises of the story.
Yeah, I think
an unfortunate combination, but there you go.
Yes, I think it's an honourable thing to do. I think it's a good idea. I think, but if that's the case, just don't talk about it. Just don't be like, oh, we're keeping it a secret. Just be like,
yeah, that's what it needs to do. Just not be like, oh.
Yeah. Don't put redacted names in Doctor Who magazine. Just
don't mention that like, oh, none of the stills we released are from this episode. Just keep it like it could be from any of them. There you are. Yeah. Doctor Who magazine issue 597 revealed the cast list included 3 redacted names. This proved to be Bernard Cribbins, Susan Twist, and Nathaniel Curtis. Curtis filmed his half of his scene with the Doctor and Donna separately and remote. Hence why, it just cuts to and fro them, because I don't think he's really there.
According to Unleashed, the insurance people didn't want them actually atop a tree, so they had to film his bit in there and then film the treetop bit somewhere else. So that's why.
So funny. I love it.
There's just legal issues, they couldn't do it.
Brilliant. The Hads had previously been used in the classic series and in the new series in Cold War and The Magician's Apprentice, Land of the Witches Familiar. So there you go. It's back. Upon learning they were in the year 1666, the Doctor remarks that Isaac Newton should stay away from London, a reference to the Great Fire of London, which the 5th Doctor inadvertently caused in the story The Visitation. So
silly goose.
Stay away from there, because it's my fault.
I've cocked it up again.
Half of London is dead because of me. It wasn't your fault. I know.
It was my fault, though.
Funny. And funnily enough, that's the story where the Sweat Screwdriver was destroyed in.
Well, there you go.
It doesn't pop up again until 7. So there you go. And he loses it in this one briefly. The 9th Doctor had previously given a robot the nickname Jimbo in The End of the World. One of the little spiders, which is fun. Is it just between the two of them?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I
remember that. It's almost like they're written by the same people. And funnily enough, that was also Russell's 2nd episode of Series 1.
No way. I wonder if there's any other similarities between this story and a previous story. Let's look at my next fun fact. And my final one. This episode features the Doctor travelling to the edge of the universe and unintentionally freeing an enemy who will go on to oppress humanity, and who the Doctor must face in the next episode. The 10th Doctor previously travelled to the end of time and unintentionally freed the Master in Utopia, who went on to oppress humanity and face the Doctor in the following episode in Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords.
I will say that technically the Doctor didn't free the Master at the end of the universe. Martha did that. But he definitely did it this time. It was definitely his fault this time.
Yes.
If we want to play technicalities, technically it was Martha's fault, and technically it was Jack's fault for going to the end of the universe.
Yeah. But it's the same writer.
Yes, it certainly is. I also think that's a good point to sort of bring up as well, is that salt thing, which, while being a strange thing in the episode, you're like, that's a bit weird, but okay, fair. It does look like it's going to have continuing ramifications.
Yes,
because there's a whole myth thing around things that were myths and legends seem to be seeping through into the universe. So you've now got, again, spoilers for the gig, or the Toymaker coming in, the bioregeneration, which was supposed to be a myth, and again the Goblin King from the Christmas special, the songs says he's not a myth. So that's 3 things that were supposed to be myths and legends coming in. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into the future. By all means, include more mythical creatures, beings, and things, and give us a sci-fi twist to them. That's great. I'm all for that.
So if that,
Merlin's not coming back, so you might as well.
Yeah, if this stuff continues into series 1, then be sure to watch the specials and come before series 1 to understand why series 1 is the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fine. They'll do a flashback. They'll do another thing where they have Shooty just staring into the void.
Please no.
God, good. Classic stuff. Well, before we sort of round this off, what are you giving Wild Blue Yonder out of 10?
I'm giving it a 6. Just above average. It's fine.
Okay, fair enough. I've given it an 8. So it's quite a considerable difference between us this week. Just because I still quite like it. I still think it's a good episode, and I probably would watch it again. It's not going to be one that I skip over a lot of. And if I get an urge to watch the specials, I will watch all 3 rather than just sort of being like, oh, I'll pick and choose. But it's not as good as the Star Beast, and it's not as good as the Giggle either. Which I would say, Giggle, Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder.
I would agree.
So there you go. That's all 3 reviews for the 60th specials done now.
Right, just done this one.
Yeah. Oh God, all out of order. But I think we'll briefly discuss the 60th now. Are you pleased with how it went, or are you kind of left wanting?
The episodes were good. They weren't a 6th anniversary. Would be my overall thoughts. I think it's a shame that I think my chance to get Matt Smith back has now passed forever. For
at least another 5 years until the 65th anniversary.
I don't know if they do something for 65, would they? I feel like it's got to be.
They didn't do anything for 55. Yeah.
They didn't do anything for 60.
They might do 20 years in 2 years' time for New Who.
Maybe. We'll have to
that would be a good excuse to get.
I think it's probably too late, but this is what they wanted to do. I think it was the wrong decision, but there you are. I've seen people being like, well, actually, it's a good 60th because they had a reference to a classic series, TARDIS. And every episode of Doctor Who does that. Come on. But, I enjoyed them for what they are mainly, but I don't think it was a 6th anniversary, if you ask me. But there you go.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair enough. I think they're kind of just like, it feels very much like the 60th was an excuse to have 3 episodes this year rather than them having the idea of, if it wasn't for the 60th, I don't think we would have had episodes this year, and we would have just had 13 regenerated shoots.
I'd have rather they just not advertise them as 60th anniversary specials and just say there's some specials, like just air them like earlier in the year or something.
Yeah.
There you go. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, good episodes. I'll watch these. It's been a while now since I think we've had a bad episode of Doctor Who. Everything for a while now. Pre-Flux is probably the last bad episode.
Yeah, it's been a while since Orphan 55, hasn't it? So.
It certainly has, and even on a rewatch, I've turned around on that one.
I am looking forward to rewatching that one in a couple of years when we get to it.
But yeah, that's
at the rate where this will go. We're going to be celebrating our 60th birthdays before we finish Capaldi.
We really will. One day we'll get to Robot of Sherwood. We promise. We'll get there. But yeah, that's it.
Spoiler alert! I prefer Wild Blue Yonder to Robot of Sherwood. There you go.
That's not hard. I don't think.
The bar is low.
Sorry. And that's a myth. A person that was supposed to be a myth actually real.
Robin Hood is real.
Robin Hood
he
will
finds
die.
out he's real, he will burn and die.
Oh no, Robin Hood, no. It's probably for the best, if we're being honest. Let's be honest about this. But yeah, that's it for now.
The golden arrow. Sorry.
Oh, terrible. That's that's little teasers for what will come. Probably, if we're being honest, it'd probably be January now. The way we're going,
probably
how many weeks we've got.
We've got the Christmas special.
There's so much to go. We still got the Christmas special.
Who knows if we're going to fit that in the week in between Christmas and New Year?
Oh, I know. 10 days that is now until that. So we'll come back before then to sort of talk about what might that be and what might that lead to. And if you are watching
Christmas number one,
exactly. I was going to say, if you're watching this before the 22nd of December, get streaming The Goblin King, guys. The Goblin Song on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. It's getting up there. It's doing all right.
Eat those children, folks.
Eat those children for Christmas. But yes, we'll
my Christmas dinner.
Oh, but yes, we'll be back probably at the weekend next week, whatever. For just more Doctor Who and God knows what else. We're keeping an open mind. Who knows?
Yes.
But yeah, that's it for now, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
All right.